Hello, and welcome to the Career Services Resume and Cover Letter Success presentation. Thank you so much for joining me today. So first, I'm going to start off by telling you all a little bit about me. My name is Kyle. I'm going to be a first-year graduate student here at ISU. I'm going to be studying College Student Personnel Administration, and my role at Career Services is the Career Ambassador Graduate Assistant. So I'd like to welcome you all to Career Services. We are located in room 185 in the Student Services building. It's down on the first floor, and our hours are from 8 to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what we can do for you at Career Services. So one of the big things that we do for students is drop-in hours. You can find those drop-in hours on our website. And I will hop over to our website really quick to go through all the rest of these resources that we offer. So here on our website, you can find the drop-in hours under the Students tab and under Career Advising. These hours will be posted as soon as we get them up to date for the coming semester. We offer a helpful resource called Interview Stream. You can find it on our homepage. The best way to get there is scrolling all the way down to the bottom, right here to Online Tools, and click on Interview Stream. Interview Stream is a resource that you can log into just using your student's email address and password, and it has a bunch of pre-made interviews that you can record yourself answering questions for, and then you can go back through and review how well you responded to them, whether you used Element-like too many times. You can choose from all sorts of different pre-made ones or create your own as well. It's a really great resource for practicing for interviewing. We also offer one-on-one career advising appointments. You can get there through Hire a Redbird here. If you log in as a current student with your normal student login, just like you would for ReggieNet, you can sign up for an appointment with one of our full-time career advisors and meet with them on a variety of different topics such as interview prep, resume and cover letter review, LinkedIn profile creation, internship and job searching, and many different things. Another great resource that you can find on our website is right here under the Events tab. You can read about all of our different events and fairs that are going on throughout the semester. We have a little calendar right here, and you can click here to learn more about some of our fairs that we have coming up in the fall. You can click on each one and read a little bit more about it and learn how to sign up. And another thing that we offer at Career Services is free business cards, resume printing, and interview rooms. You can find that by scrolling all the way down here to free resources. You can click on each of these different pages to learn more about how you can print off your resume or your business cards or get access to our interview rooms. So one question you may be asking yourself is, why do I need a resume? Well, a resume is a really important tool that can be helpful to you in landing that interview to the really great job that you have in your future. So a resume is basically just a professional document. It's designed to reflect your skills and qualifications and also display some of your experiences that are directly related to the job description of the job in which you're applying for. One tool that we recommend that students use is something called a master resume. It's a really helpful document that's separate from any resume that you'll ever turn into an employer. Basically, the gist of it is it's a document where you can keep all of your experiences, no matter what they are, and you can pick and choose and put them on and off the resumes that you're turning into your jobs. So basically, it's just a big compilation of all of your experiences, and you can pull specific ones that may be relevant to different jobs that you may be applying for in your future. So here are a couple of transferable skills that we really recommend that students try and highlight when you're talking about your experiences. And I'll show you a little bit more about how to do that a little further in this presentation, but I'd like to highlight these specific ones here on this slide because they're really great ones to try and focus your resume on. So career management, global and intercultural fluency, critical thinking and problem solving, oral and written communication skills, professionalism, work ethic, digital technology skills, leadership skills, and teamwork and collaboration skills are all commonly desired by employers and great things to highlight on your resume. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how to format your resume. So I want to highlight a couple of basics for you guys. So on an entry-level position resume, you're usually looking for it to be about 1 page in length, and that's just the front side of 1 page. We recommend using simple and easy to read font styles like Times New Roman or Arial to avoid complete sentences when you're talking about your experiences. And I'll give you some examples of that a little later on. To avoid pronouns and make sure that you're using the appropriate tenses of all of your verbs. So your positions or things that you're currently doing would be in the present tense, and things that you've done in the past would be in the past tense. Organize all of your experiences by relevant headings. That way everything is kind of neatly in each section and it's all appropriate. That way an employer is not jumping around and seeing a bunch of things that don't really have much to do with each other, and everything is organized and easy to find in one place. Print your resume on quality resume paper, which, as I mentioned earlier, is something that you can do at Career Services if you visit us in the Student Services building. And the last thing that we recommend that you do is just proofread your resume multiple times. It's a good idea to have one of our career advisors take a look at it. You can also have one of our career ambassadors look at it during drop-in hours. You can also hand it off to friends, family members, anyone that you trust that will give you good and honest feedback on your resume. And another helpful resource as well is our resume writing guide, which you can find on our website. So now I want to go over some common headings and sections that we find on a lot of resumes. So the first one is your contact information. Sometimes students will include a career objective or summary of qualifications. Education sections are often found closer to the top of resumes. Good resumes usually have work experience sections, either related or additional or relevant work experience sections. Resumes also include activities, organizations, or community service sections. A skills section is something that we find on resumes as well. And honors and awards sections can also be included on your resume, or they can be included within your education section as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit more detail in the coming slides. You can also check out the resume writing guide for more examples of different sections that can go on your resume. These are definitely not the only ones, but these are just the 8 ones we are going to highlight today. So the first section is contact information. Really the highlights of this section is that you want to make sure your contact info is at the top of your resume. Your name is in big letters and bold. Your name is the biggest font size on your document. That way an employer knows exactly whose resume this is, and it doesn't get shuffled away or mixed up with anyone else's. Your address can be an optional inclusion on your contact information. What we do recommend is if you do include your address, that you include the one that you will be occupying while you are holding this position. So let's say you're applying for a job at the Bowen Student Center. You might want to use your student address as opposed to your home address. And then we recommend, when it comes to the phone number and the email address that you include on your resume, that they're professional. You don't want to have some kind of joke voicemail that's really funny to your friends, but not so funny to an employer. And you want to make sure that your personal email account is something professional, not something like Donut Eater 22 or something like that. You want to make sure that it is professional and representative of you. So here are 2 examples of how contact information could look. The first one is stacked. So in the stacked example here, you have all the different pieces of contact information separated out on multiple lines. This can help you take up a little bit of room on your resume if you're finding that you aren't quite getting to 1 page. You might want to take this approach. And the 1-line approach below it here has all the same kind of information, but it's putting it all on 1 line and separating it out with a symbol like a bullet point or a slash or something. That way you can save yourself a couple of lines if you're really struggling to fit everything onto 1 page. So the next sections that we're going to go over are the objective statement and the summary of qualifications. These 2 sections are completely optional. They're never going to be required on a resume for you. So these are sections that are really great to include if you're kind of not really sure what you want to put on your resume. These are great places to start. But if you find that as you get more experience and you're struggling to make cuts on what makes it onto that 1 page, sometimes these sections are really easy to make as your first initial cuts. So the objective statement is basically just a concise statement that's addressing the specific position that you're applying for. It may include a description of your skill sets. It's really tailored to fit this specific position. So an example of an objective statement could be, to secure the project manager position at State Farm, where my teamwork and communication skills may be utilized. So here they're highlighting the specific position, which is project manager. They're highlighting where they are applying for, and they're also highlighting the skills that they are hoping to use. A summary of qualification basically highlights 3 to 5 specific skills or accomplishments or maybe experiences that are applicable to the job that you're applying for. Usually it's formatted in bullet point formatting, and it uses buzzwords, some that can be found within the job posting itself, to kind of highlight these skills and make you appear marketable. Professional written and interpersonal communication skills developed through weekly report writing, supervision, and training of staff, or successful ability to simultaneously manage multiple tasks. So both of these bullet points are using buzzwords that are very attractive and help highlight the skills in which the person is trying to convey. So the next section we're going to talk about here is education. Education is a very important section, especially to us as students right now. This is one of the biggest things that we're focusing on right now. And so you really want to make sure that you are highlighting all of the great things that you're doing for your education within this section here. List all of the institutions that you've attended, where they're located, the degrees that you've been pursuing, and your expected graduation dates. Any majors, minors, or sequences, any specific areas of concentration within your major. In the education section, you can also include study abroad experiences, or you could put that in its own section as well. It's really up to you. You can also include certifications and any endorsements you may have received. You also can include your GPA. We usually recommend including your GPA if it's 3.0 or above. When you do include your GPA, you want to make sure that you label it either your cumulative or your major GPA, whichever one it is that you're including. Indicate the scale that it's out of. So here at ISU, we're out of a 4.0 scale, and you can see the example below here is for a cumulative GPA. That's a 3.5 out of 4. And within the section as well, you can also mention any academic honors and relevant coursework, or you could make those their own section as well. So we have a couple of examples of education sections here. I'm going to start with the one in the top left. This is for a student that went to community college but did not graduate with an associate's degree. They just completed some credit hours. So here they have both ISU and their respective community college listed. They both have their dates of attendance, their locations, and the name of the institution. Up at ISU, it has the name of the degree that they're pursuing and their GPA. And then down with the community college, it lists the credit hours that they completed. We usually recommend including the number of credit hours you've completed or a community college experience if it's 30 hours or more, because that usually correlates with about a year. The experience to the right of that is another community college experience, but it's for a student that graduated with an associate's degree. So you can see instead of credit hours completed, they've listed the name of their associate's degree and the month and year in which they received it. On the bottom left-hand side of the screen is a study abroad experience section. So as I mentioned earlier, it can be its own section if you'd like it to, or if you include it within your education section, this is one way that you may do that. So it has the name of the study abroad experience, and it has the date in which it was completed. Also, a little bit above that, you can see an example of relevant coursework or related coursework included in an education section. So they have labeled all of these courses as relevant coursework, and it is relevant to the major that they are pursuing. The middle example on the right-hand side is for if you've included a sequence or minor on your education section. So you can see below the name of the degree that the student is pursuing, they've listed the sequence within that degree, which is conservation biology. And then below that, they have their minor, which is renewable energy. And then the last example on the bottom right here is for education majors. It has a section for licenses and endorsements, which are really great things to include on your resume. And so if you're an education major, you want to make sure that you're leaving room for these things on your resume. So the next big area of sections that we're going to talk about here are experience sections. There are lots of different kinds of experience sections, and they all, while they may have different things in them, we do recommend that you try and format them similarly. So that way an employer, when they hit a new experience section, they know exactly what they're looking at and can identify similar information across all of your sections. So some examples of experience section could be work experience, internship experience, organizational experience or involvement, community service, study abroad, or coursework. So like I said earlier, we recommend that you try and organize all of these in relevant headings. That way all of your information is concise and in the same place, and they're not seeing bits of information scattered across the entire resume. We recommend that these experiences within these sections be listed in reverse chronological order, with the very most recent one that you've started at the very top of each of your sections. And again, when it comes to picking and choosing what experiences you're going to talk about on your resume, we recommend making sure that you tailor each of these experiences towards the job that you're applying for. So you don't need to list every single experience and everything that you've ever done. That's something you can do in your master resume and then transfer over to a particular resume when you go to work on it. So when it comes to talking about the experiences that you have in your resume, we recommend that you follow a couple of these tips. So you always want to include the job title, the employer, the city, state that it was located, and the dates of employment. We recommend that when it comes to talking about the things that you've done in that experience, that you use bullet points. You want to start your bullet point with a strong action verb that correlates with a skill that you're trying to communicate. Those transferable skills that I mentioned earlier are what we recommend that you try and highlight. And in our resume writing guide, you can find action verbs that correlate with all of those skills that can really help employers start thinking about those skills that you possessed right when they read that first bullet point and that first action verb. Try and quantify things when it's appropriate. Having numbers in your resume can help bullet points stand out and can also help give employers a better sense of the quantity of things that you may have done. Stay away from using personal pronouns in complete sentences. And you also want to start your bullet points, the very first one being the most relevant thing. It's a really great practice to look through the job description and find things that the employer is specifically looking for, and then tailoring your bullet points towards that. And then down here at the bottom, we have an example of our bullet point formula that you can follow, which you can start with an action verb. Again, like I said, it's an action verb that's related to a transferable skill that you're trying to convey. And then you follow that up with the details or what it was that you really did in that experience. So we're going to go through 2 bullet point examples here. So this job here is a camp counselor, and their initial bullet point is play with children and make meals for them. So this is okay. It does describe a little bit about what they were doing, but it doesn't really highlight any of the skills that this person gained from doing this job. So one skill that maybe they could try and highlight here is management, and they could maybe flip this bullet point around to use the action verb supervise that has to do with management skills. And so they could also quantify the amount of children that they were working with. And so this example turns into something like supervise approximately 15 adolescents by facilitating age-appropriate activities that encourage learning and development. The next example that we have is a student dining worker, and the bullet point that they started with is served food to students. So again, yes, this is what they were doing, but maybe we could try and find a skill to put in with this to give this bullet point a little bit more meat. So one skill that someone as a student dining worker could try to use here is customer service and communication. And so they used here in this example, the bullet point provided, which directly relates to customer service and communication skills. And then they followed it up with a more in-depth description about what it was that they were doing. So this example turned into provided excellent customer service while serving students healthy meals and adjusting food options for students with dietary restrictions. So now I recommend that you pause this video just for a couple of seconds and read through this sample job posting and try and identify a couple of those transferable skills that we mentioned earlier, or other skills that would be really great to highlight on your resume that this job is specifically asking for. So a couple of skills that I have identified here within this example is communication. This person who answers this application needs to be able to answer phones and also schedule appointments. So that requires a good amount of customer service skills, but also communication skills as well. They also need to be well organized and also able to do certain things with technology. They need to be able to scan documents, use the phone, and also be organized enough to maintain a clean work area and reception area as well. Next, we're going to talk about the activities, organizations, and community service sections. So these sections can be formatted almost exactly like you formatted your experience sections. You can include campus and community organizations here, community service and volunteer work, any professional associations or memberships, and any leadership roles that you may have. So again, just like you did in your experience section, you want to list the name of the role, the name of the organization, the location, and the dates in which you were involved. And then you want to follow those up with bullet points, again, like your experience section, that describes what it was that you were doing and tries to highlight some of the skills that you gained, some of the transferable skills that you have from being involved in these things. So here we have a couple examples of some of these sections. So the very first one here is an extracurricular involvement and leadership section. So they have the name of the organization, the location, ISU is who they were affiliated with, so they listed that. They have the dates of involvement and the name of their position title. And then they followed it up with a bullet point that has an action verb and describes what it was that they were doing. Likewise, the two sections below that follow the very same formatting, but they're for volunteer experience as opposed to being involved in like a campus organization. And now we're just going to briefly go over some of the other sections that I mentioned at the beginning. So one section that you could include, similar to a skills section, is a languages section. So if you have taken any kind of coursework or have any kind of background in another language other than English, you can definitely include that on your resume. You just want to make sure that when you do, you communicate how comfortable you are with all the different parts of the language. So how well and comfortable you are with speaking it, reading it, and writing it. You want to make sure that you don't confuse an employer with your comfort level with any other second language, just in case you don't accidentally say you're more comfortable with something than you actually are. And then you might end up awkwardly sitting down in an interview and someone could be talking at you in another language and you might not know what to do. So just be sure that you are clear with your comfort level when you're talking about other languages. And then in a skills section or certification section, you can include things like technological skills, like any Microsoft Office certifications or video editing software you may have experience with. And again, you want to list your comfort levels with those, just like you would in the language section. You can also include CPR and first aid, any certifications like that. Other sections that you can have could be military service and or related trainings, or honors and awards sections as well. So I recommend that you pause the video here. Just take a look at this resume for a couple of seconds and try and identify some of the potential errors within this resume. So a couple of errors that I'm noticing here is that they aren't using a consistent font. At the very top, they have their name and contact information in some kind of cursive, which is a little bit harder to read, and it doesn't match the font for the rest of their document here. Another thing that I'm noticing too is that they aren't using the present tense on their verbs when they're talking about experiences that they currently have. Their education section is a little bit jumbled. It kind of reads more like a sentence as opposed to separating the information out, so it's easier to read through quickly. Their objective statement is written as a sentence and has a period at the end, but we recommend not having periods in your resume at all. And then another big one is down at the bottom. They've listed a hobbies section. We usually recommend when it comes to things that you're passionate about that you try and list them as experiences and get involved with organizations related to the things that you're passionate about, so that way you can talk about your involvement in the organization as opposed to that you enjoy going shopping or something like that. So now I recommend again that you pause the video just for a couple seconds and read over this resume. It's a pretty good example of how a resume could look, and I want you to try and find some things that were not so great on the last resume that are better here. It's not the same kind of information on this resume, but there are a lot of examples and good things to take from this resume. So a couple things that are really great about this resume is that everything is kind of listed more horizontally. Things aren't jumbled together in sentence structure. They use proper bullet point formatting. All of their verb tenses are appropriate. Their objective statement has lost its period. All of their sections are formatted similarly, and it's very easy to read and to get through. So now I'm just going to run through a couple of questions here. You can pause the video to answer some of these questions on your own. I'd just like to test your knowledge a little bit about the couple of things that we've gone through. So the first question is, using a template is fine when creating a resume. True or false? So the correct answer for this one is false. We haven't covered this one just yet, but I will cover it now. So when it comes to creating a resume, we usually recommend just starting with like a blank Word document, writing about your experiences, and then organizing things so that it all looks consistent. One thing that we find is troublesome when it comes to using resume templates that students may find online is that they sometimes struggle getting through applicant tracking software. Applicant tracking software is something that employers filter resumes through that searches for certain keywords and phrases on your resume that these templates don't always have you include. So you want to make sure that you are really using your own writing and your own style when it comes to creating your resume. The next question is, how long does a recruiter spend reviewing a resume on average? 10 to 15 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds, 2 to 3 minutes, or as long as it takes to read through. So the correct answer here is 20 to 30 seconds. That's about how long an interviewer or resume reviewer is going to look at a resume. So that's why it's really important that you make sure that it's very easy to read your resume, the information flows very well, and that you highlight the important things first, and also that you put all of your resume on the front side of one page. That way an employer is not flipping through multiple pages and they don't lose interest or they don't lose pages. And the most important information is what they see. The next question is, how long should your resume be? 2 pages, as long as it takes to fit all of your experience, 1 page, or less than 1 page. So the correct answer is 1 page. I've talked about this one a little bit, so we don't need to go over it a ton, but you want to make sure that your resume is the front side of 1 page. And the last question is, what kinds of experience should you include on your resume? Education, experience related to your major, hobbies you do for fun, or high school experience after your freshman year. So this one actually has 2 correct answers. It's both education and experience related to your major. As I mentioned earlier, it's better to talk about the things that you're passionate about if you were involved in any organization or anything outside extracurriculars or things like that related to those things. And for high school experience, it's totally okay to have that on if you're a freshman just getting into college, but we usually recommend taking it off after your freshman year because hopefully you've had a lot of new experiences that you can include on your resume. So moving on, we're going to talk next about a reference page. So a reference page is something that's separate from your resume. It's basically just there to provide the contact information for any references or professional references that you have. Your heading at the top is just references. It's just as simple as that. Like that's really all you need at the top. We usually recommend trying to maintain anywhere from 3 to 5 references. These references could be faculty, supervisors, managers, or a supervising teacher that you've had. The information that you include is their name, their title, the organization they work for, their contact information. Make sure with the contact information that you keep it up to date and that you also get their approval for the kind of contact information that you provide. Some people may only be comfortable giving the phone number. Some people may be okay with you including the address, phone number, and email. Notify these people when you use them as a reference, just to make sure they don't get a call out of the blue and are taken totally aback, and they have a little bit of time to prepare hyping you up to an employer. So here's an example of how a reference could look on a reference page. You can see here they've got the name, the position title, the institution that they work for, the address, the phone number, and the email. So next we're going to talk a little bit about cover letters. So cover letter is basically a supplemental resource to your resume. It allows you to go into a little bit more detail about some of that information. And it's basically kind of like a written sales pitch about how great you are for this position, the things you can bring to the table. And it also can reveal your ability to write well to an employer. You want to make sure that it's tailored to each position, just like your resume would be. You want to make sure that you're expressing your interest in the specific position, and you basically want to connect what you have with what you know the employer wants. A helpful resource in writing cover letters can be found on our website. If you just type in the search bar, cover letter content and structure, you can find it there, or you can also find this handout within Career Services if you visit us in person. So now I just want to highlight a couple of the main things that you want to touch on within a cover letter. So at the beginning, you want to list your contact information, your address, the city, state, and zip code. You want to make sure that you include the date in which you are sending the letter. So if you write the letter in advance, just make sure you update the date on the letter for the actual day that you send it or turn it in. You want to list the employer's contact information, their name, their title, the company, the address, the city, the state, and the zip code. And you want to start with a salutation. Usually we recommend, if you can't find the name of the specific person that you're writing to, saying "Dear Hiring Manager" or "Dear Human Resources Professional." These are ways to still keep it personal to whom you're writing to, but if you don't know their full name, we usually recommend taking that approach. Also, one thing to keep in mind is if you don't know the preferred title for someone, Mr., Mrs., or Miss, or however they would like to be addressed, you can just use their full name. It's usually just better to make it more personal and to make sure that you don't incorrectly address them. So in the first paragraph, you're really trying to grab the reader's attention. You want to indicate the position that you're applying for specifically, and you want to let them know how you found out about it. The second and third paragraphs are used to indicate why you're interested in the position. You want to emphasize your strongest qualifications, and you want to provide specific examples of your accomplishments, how they have benefited you in previous companies or in previous class projects maybe, and you want to indicate how those skills will benefit the company that you're applying for. And then in the closing paragraph, you want to request an interview. You want to indicate any possible times and dates that you're available. You can repeat your contact information if you feel it's necessary. And it's also good to take some initiative and tell them that you will reach out to them if you haven't heard from them. It also just shows that you are very interested in this position, enough so that you want to reach back out and make sure that you hear from them. And then you want to end the letter with "sincerely." You can leave a little bit of space underneath that to print off your letter, sign it, and if you're turning it in online, you can scan that back in. Signatures are just really great to show that you really did take the time and effort to write this letter, and you have your seal of approval, which is your signature upon it. And then below that, you want to include your printed name. And that is all I have for you today. So if you would write up a resume or a cover letter and you want to have it reviewed, you can visit our drop-in hours. You can find those on our website. That's where you'll be able to see the most current and up-to-date hours that we offer. You also can visit our website, like I showed earlier, on Hire Redbird and sign up to have your resume and cover letter reviewed by our career advisors. Thank you so much for sitting through this presentation. If you want to connect with us on social media, we are on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And you can always call us at 309-438-2200 to get access to our services. And you can schedule an appointment on Hire Redbird. Thank you.